I've been doing is doing a lot of, since the debates have peaked and waned a bit, I've been walking the street quite a bit. And it's interesting to talk to the people. I'm encouraged how well informed they are, quite frankly.
What are you hearing?
Well, there seem to be three issues. The electric, and it's amazing. Most people believe that it doesn't really matter which two of the five candidates are elected, from the perspective of they understand that the contract is the contract and it's inviolate and it's out of the hands of city council, the coming city council. You know, essentially the contract is signed, there's a penalty in it, but Florida Power and Light has the option of amending the contract as they see fit, and even amending if there's unreasonable costs that Vero Beach would have to pay. They have the right to pay that sum. More than that, I think Florida Power and Light would sue the city if we didn't follow through in the contract, and I think people understand that. So I don't see the electric as being the big issue. People are very concerned about electric rates, but I don't see that the electric as being the big issue in this election.
Mm-hmm. What are you hearing from people?
Well, people are concerned that they'll be able to keep a piece of Pie Park, or the ones, yesterday I was across the street from Riverside Park, that the parks will be kept the way they have been, that they'll have an animal control officer or 911, that we won't, one of the strongest I hear is that we not violate the 35-foot ever consider height limit in zoning. So there's concern that we're going to be able to have the city that we love after the sale of the electric, and it's somewhat long to explain, but I think a great many of them understand that by refunding the using the cash, working cash that is in the utility, this has nothing to do with the sale except we free up $30 to $40 million worth of cash. We can fund the unfunded pension, which the city managers come up with 3.2 million as the gap in the budget, and that fills in 2.2. So that leaves us $1 million. This last city council, we were able to get 690 of that million out. Of course, numbers have a way of growing. There's another 600,000 if we were to do the same thing with the police. In other words, fully fund the police pension, which is in better shape. So I think most people understand that by fixing the pension problem, the second prong is we've got to fix our benefits. We've got to go to the defined contribution. We've got to end the saving up of sick pay and vacation. We got to go to use or lose it, and continuing restructuring of the city. I think most people understand that while money will be tight, we're not faced with any draconian problem. And the thing I get hit with over and over again is the lagoon. I think that's the overriding issue. And if you look at this area, we have three things that are really set us apart from so many other places. We have our beautiful beaches in the Atlantic Ocean. We are Vero Beach. And we have a town that everyone around comes to. And they come to for a reason. I had the occasion to judge the little kids, 600, I guess they were, little kids' costumes at the Halloween parade on Saturday, and then of course Saturday night it was down on the beach. And people love those things about this town, the things that happen here. But I think the greatest thing that we have here, greater than the town itself, the thing to be most concerned with, is the lagoon. It's the greatest of all, and without the lagoon, and without finding out what's wrong with the lagoon and taking corrective steps, I think we have a huge problem.
What role do you think the city can play in that?
Well, the city's role is relatively small, and one of my compatriots, I think, has done a wonderful job. That's Mrs. Turner, as a matter of fact, and she spearheaded a lot of work, both working with Brian LaPointe and Edie Witter, and the first fertilizer ordinance. Of course, we have for second reading a very strong fertilizer ordinance that actually mirrors the county. Of course, the county came into the game after we did. Myself, I've been up lobbying the Florida League of Cities to lobby the legislature to help us. I think we need to understand there's 5 or 6 potential causes. And what was done in the Chesapeake some years ago was they found out that the thing that was causing 80% of the problem, and not that they cured the problem, but they cured this problem and made a giant street leap forward, was the manure coming out of chicken farms. And by knowing that and attacking that, they were able to fix it. I think in the next 6, 9 months, whatever the period of time is, we have to get enough Kilroys out there. We have to do enough research to be able to define absolutely whether the biggest problem that'll get us the biggest early hit, whether that happens to be fertilizer from whence it comes, could be agriculture, it could be lawn, whether it's grass clippings, whether it's material coming out of the marshes. And the number one suspect, and the hardest one to fix, of course, but if it has to be fixed, we have to fix it, is the septic tanks. You know, the county's got roughly 38,000 septic tanks, but Vero Beach in its city limits has got roughly 1,500. And many of those are in low-lying areas, and we will have to do what we have to do, and that's where me lobbying, and I would say second to Mrs. Turner, I've worked on the lagoon more than anyone, the two of us more than the rest, although Mr. Kramer has been active. But I would say we have to understand, and if it is the septics, we're going to have to do whatever that means doing, which is complicated and expensive.
John Orcutt has argued that this is a issue that counties need to take the lead on, and then the counties need to work together, the 5 counties along the lagoon here. The septic tank issue that you were making reference to would have to be addressed by the city, at least the 1,500 or so that are within the city limits.
But before I think anyone can ask anyone, including, you know, whether they're taxpayers or the state or local homeowners, to face this, I think we have to understand it, and we have to be able to say, this is the chicken manure of the Chesapeake Bay. And I think that can be done. I've talked about the city actually investing in some more Kilroys. I think that is something we should do, so we can understand exactly what we've got. For instance, one in Bethel Creek would be most helpful to understand what we have going on in Bethel Creek, and we have a problem.
So what you're saying is that you're hearing people express concern about the lagoon and seeing government take some action there once they determine what action might be effective. And you were saying that people are concerned about maintaining services and maintaining the quality of life, but you're not hearing concern about the electric issue.
That's correct. And I think it's interesting, people are more concerned about the lagoon.
You have the resources to do the kind of code enforcement work you're describing?
Probably not, and if that's so, we're gonna have to fix that. We're gonna have to do what has to be done. I mean, we have a true emergency situation here. I see us being able, with intelligent decisions, but I'm a finance guy, but I see us being able to work through and provide the public with the services they want. I see solutions to that, and that's what I run on. You know, I've said, you know, after the sale of the electric, working for intelligent solutions, and they're there. They're not that hard. But the lagoon is a much bigger problem. First of all, it's more important. I hate to say that because I love the town. But secondly, we have a lot less understanding of it. And thirdly, we could be facing a lot more money than we ever conceive of. And beyond that, I've always thought, you know, we're in the next 5 to 8 or 10 years, we're spinning off lots of cash out of our water and sewer utilities since we optimized it. I took it from 72 to 48 people. I don't think we got to the 48 quite yet. But what's happening is we have a very profitable entity, and we have built the main between the current sewer plant, all but the last 100 yards or so, out to the airport, and we could put another sewer plant out there. But the thing to realize is the current plant we have is a great plant. It's been hardened, updated. We continue to update it, and I wonder whether some of this cash that we're spending off should be used to help our citizens solve the sewer and the septic tank problem. I don't know. I mean, the reason to move the sewer plant is, I hate to look at it, but it causes no environmental problem. It would take a high 4 or 5 for it to ever cause any problem. So, and we may have a choice to make there because, if we have X millions of dollars every year, we could go out in 5 to 10 years, let's say at 8 years, and we could borrow the $25 million and nicely pay it off and build a new sewer plant, and we could move this one. That's not so hard to do. There's been preliminary work done on that. But I'm not so sure that's the right thing to do. And that's where we come back to the start with the Kilroys. We have, if it is septic tanks, and we suspect it is, I have heard Dr. LaPointe listed as his number one suspect, and Edie Witter, Dr. Witter also. If that's the case, we're going to have to do whatever we have to do. It probably is more, and of course, the longer we wait, the more it'll cost. It's probably like $25 million today, not 20. But and if we wait 5 to 8 years, that number will escalate. At the same time, we keep doing better and spending off more cash out of water and sewer. So, and after the sale of the electric, it gets that much better because one of the biggest user of electricity the city has that's going to have this power rate reduction is water and sewer. Just think of all the water and all the fluids that have to be pumped. It's a huge number that we'll save there. That'll make it even that much more, be more than that. And the thing that I find really interesting in talking to people, and I'm really encouraged about it. They are up to speed and understand that the electric, it doesn't matter who you elect, and in effect, the electric thing is done at the city level. If it falls through, which I don't think there's hardly any chance of, it'll be between Florida Power and Light and FMPA. We just simply don't have an oar in that. And I'm encouraged that they want what they want, but I think the last city council's been fairly effective in finding economic solutions, and they think we'll solve it, and they believe what I say, that there are solutions after the sale of electric. And I think what's so encouraging is they're focused on really what they should be focused, which is the lagoon. I want to cry. My boat's behind us here, but I go out and we could go from here to the Barber Bridge, and and at any given time and see 5 to 7 dolphins, and about half the time we see manatees, and we simply don't. The pelicans are not there. The number of birds on Paradise Island behind us here is just gone down drastically. Even all the way to the rapiers, the fish hawks, the ospreys. We have just fewer of everything, and it's a terrible problem.
Certainly.
The fundamental cause is people, and the fundamental cause is as we get more and more people in the county. We're over 140,000 people. When my family came in 1971, I think it was 30 some odd thousand.
The entire county.
In the entire county, and that puts stress. Now, but the stress, there are many examples where the stress has been handled intelligently. In other words, you have to do what you have to do. You can no longer afford urban septic tanks near the lagoon, maybe. So there are things we can do that we don't have to lose the lagoon just because we have more people. And we'll have more people in the future, and that's probably a good thing. But we have to be willing to tackle the problems. And I think the people are going to keep the pressure on the politicians, and I do think at each level.
If it turns out that the septic tanks need to be addressed, and by addressed and putting them on the sanitary sewer system, that's going to cost the city, and it's probably going to cost homeowners. Do you see that as a controversial issue, or are we at the point where the majority of people would see the need for that?
Well, we're at the point, and having talked to many hundreds of people at it, that people see the possibility that may have to be, but they want to know it. they want us to finish the research that's just really been started with the Kilroy's and Dr. LaPointe's research and so on. In other words, I think our citizenry, if we say to them, okay, here's the data, I think if we have to change some of them or all, it probably would only be some. There are many septic tanks, if they're on a big enough area, if they're a high enough area, they may be fine. But I think our people, I was talking to a fellow in Indian Bay last night about it, and he said, well, if I have to do it, I have to do it. And I think people will accept it. Now, there's some that, many that can't afford it, and we have to figure out how to help them afford it. I don't think you can go to them unless you can say, this is what it is, we've all got to band together, this is what the city's willing to do, this is what the state's willing to do. Hopefully, Congress will be willing to do something in Washington. This is what the various organizations are willing to do. But I think we have to have the facts, because if you ask somebody, even if it's over 20 years, and even if it's $40 or $50 a month, you know, to defray a $15,000 cost, I think you've got to have your facts. I suspect that's going to happen. We will get the facts, and I suspect that we will have to tackle it. And for myself, if we have to, we have to. We'll do what we have to. And then the question is, at each government level, what we can do to help people live through it.
So you see that becoming an issue that the next city council will need to deal with?
Yes.
Is that going to resolve itself in the next 2 years, at least in terms of the science, making
Yes.
clear the issues?
Yeah, well, we can't afford to wait. I would hope, I've heard the scientists talk about time, and it's a silly thing. If you had, I heard one of them say if they had 52 Kilroys across the 152 miles of the Indian River, they would know enough. And each one is $25,000, and yet we have all these things that government spend money for. And I'm glad to see this charitable group, and I donated a little bit of money to it, and I would encourage anyone listening to this to do the same, because it's a good cause, you know, to buy more of these. And I would expect to bring forward to the city council that if we have to buy 2 or 3 of them, we have to buy them. It has to be done. It's absolutely as important as, you know, redoing the dunes along the Con Beach or whatever. It has to be done.
Let me ask you one last question. How many doors would you estimate you have knocked on in this campaign?
I think about 800, and you know, I wish I had a better plan of how I do it, but I've been in all quarters of the city, and there are 1 or 2 of the minor issues that play in one place rather than another, but the main ones seem to be the same. They're the 3. The electric, let's get it done, and as you know, I think we could have got it done faster. We wasted a lot of time not resolving the FMPA thing. I mean, you know, we had this deal where we're going to shuttle our power to Orlando Public Utility Commission, and they're going to shuttle it to Florida Power and Light, and that's going to cost Florida Power and Light $30 million. And I said October 16th last year, that wouldn't work. And what we had to do, what had to be done is go directly, and of course the chairman of Florida Power and Light on August 20th of this year wrote a letter to that effect. So we wasted 10 months. And that was criminal, because we could have been 10 months ahead of where we are. It's still going to take some time, unfortunately. I don't see a closing before December of 2014 if everything goes right, and it may not. Yeah. And you can't, I don't blame either Florida Power and Light or FMPA making the best deal they can for themselves. I don't blame them. And early on, it actually came from one of our early advisors who's no longer involved, and he said the way to solve this is to empower Florida Power and Light and OUC to negotiate with FMPA. And that's what we did. That's the route we've always been on. And we said, okay, Florida Power and Light, you have the lawyers, you have the money, you're the one that wants to acquire it. We're Little Vero Beach. You do the negotiation. And that's still going on, and it's unfortunately taken longer than we would like, but I would think that Florida Power and Light will be successful.
So the summary of what you've heard knocking on 800 different doors throughout the city in a variety of neighborhoods is that people want to see the electric sale concluded.
Yes.
They don't want to see significant changes in the profile of city services,
Or height limits.
yeah, or height limits, and they'd like to see government finally address the issue of the lagoon.
I think finally is too strong. I think they, just like we, I mean, in the last 6 months, I've been working on the lagoon issue, and it kind of hit me from nowhere, and I think it has hit the public from nowhere, and I think it's a big shock that the problem is as dire as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they see that as the big issue. And it is the big issue. God bless them.
Mm-hmm.